or a high mass is that usually there's a short homily as opposed to a longer sermon. So we'll see. I'm not sure. There's a word that I want to give you today on this All Saints Sunday. And that word is this: connection. Connection. Everything about All Saints Sunday speaks to connection. Our connection with God, our connection with our true selves, our connection with others, both those living with us now and those who have died to this life, and our connection with all of creation. We hear the word connection echoing through the words of the Collect for All Saints, a prayer that begins by addressing God as the one who has knit us together in the communion and fellowship of all the saints. Isn't that a wonderful image? Knit us together with those who are here now, those we know, those we don't know, those who have gone before us into a larger life with God. Knit us together. Connection. We hear the word connection spoken in this morning's psalm. We sang a paraphrase of it. The words actually in the first line of that psalm are these: the earth is the Lord's and all that is in it, the world and all who dwell therein. Connection. The connection of everything that is. And most especially, we hear the word connection ringing throughout the passage that we read from the Revelation to John, beginning with the line that says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. It may not be obvious to us at first what the connection is in that line from Revelation to John. We have to know something about the symbols to understand it. What the symbols mean in that letter, what they meant to John, what they meant to the churches he was writing to, the churches that were under his charge. And we have to remember that when we read this book of the Bible, this Revelation to John, we have to read it with the same eyes we use when we read poetry, looking for the picture that the words paint, rather than trying to make it fit some straightforward, logical, chronological, literal meaning. When we read poetry, it's the symbol that speaks to us of so much more than just the picture that we first see. And that's true here too. In this case, it's tremendously important to know what the symbol of the sea meant. The sea, to the original hearers of this letter, was a symbol of chaos. From the stories of Genesis, the very first story that we know of in the first chapter of Genesis, they would have told that story over and over again about the waters of chaos and how God brought order to the waters of chaos and separated the land from the land with the sea. They would have known the story of Noah, which is a story about God unleashing the waters of chaos and then promising never to do that again. And so when they heard the sea, they would have thought of this symbol of the sea of chaos. The chaos that divides heaven, meaning not a place, but heaven, meaning a way of life in accordance with God's intention for life. Heaven, that's what it would have meant to them. A sea dividing that intention of God from earth, which what that would have meant to them was a way of life that they knew very well firsthand was completely infected with the brokenness of things like war, famine, natural disasters, and sickness unto death. So that's the picture. When they heard sea, they would have thought of the way of God and the way God intends things to be, separated from the way of brokenness that it actually is in the world by the sea of chaos. Here in this earth, then, what they would have experienced is that they prayed to God to remove that sea of chaos. And that in some ways, they knew God walked through them, helping them to navigate those seas. But the promise they would have heard in this was the promise that even now, God is connecting heaven and earth in a way. God is connecting God's intention for life by healing the brokenness. And there would come a day when that sea of chaos is no more. And that is the picture when they heard the words, which was probably a song, when they heard the words, or actually sung the words in a liturgy like this, about a new heaven and a new earth, and the sea was no more, they would have heard that connection. Heaven and earth, one, without being divided by the sea of chaos and brokenness. God's will being done on earth as it is in heaven. All brokenness banished. Connection. Perfect connection with God, with self, with others, and with all creation. All Saints Sunday reminds us that God is already about the business of making this connection complete. So as we affirm this connection on this day, we actually are doing two things. The first thing we are doing is that we celebrate the connection we already had. We celebrate a reality that because we are knit together in the communion of saints, we still have a connection with those whom we love but no longer see. We still have a connection with those whom we love but no longer see. That every name we read and remember today of a person that we have loved and cared for, whom we no longer see because they have died and entered a larger life with God, the reality is we are still knit together with them in the communion and fellowship of God, and we are connected. That's the first thing. The second is that we remember our call. We remember that we have a call from God to begin to live into this connection of the ways of heaven and the ways of earth. Right now and right here. And that we do so by giving of our own time and talents and treasure in ways that contribute to God's will being done here on earth as it is in heaven. That's why we're going to bless pledges that you've made for 2013. Pledges that will help this community of faith continue to be a community of faith, trying to live together in ways that further that connection. That's what it really means. And so on this day, we remember those with whom we are still knit together, and we make a promise to God, symbolized by the pledges we have made, that we will give of ourselves in this community so that individually and as a community, we will be doing God's work in the world. Connection. It's a call to awareness that we are connected through God to everyone and everything that is. Connection. It's an invitation to deepen our relationship with God, with our true selves, with the true selves of others, and with all creation. It's a word to keep, connection is. It's a word to use each and every day. May it be so.